Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. We'll turn our cameras off because none of us are that good looking.
It adds to the theater of the mind thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Theater of the mind. Theater of the mind. Wasn't that like a Rod Serling thing?
I don't think it was, no. What is that? Theater of the Mind. Is that Orson Welles and the Mercury Radio Players, maybe?
Yeah, I heard our guest giggling in the background. He didn't get out of the green room already, did he?
I think the green room, has a speaker and intercom system, and I might have had it open.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I like you. NBC. Da, da, da.
Do you like that? I moved backwards there for my icon logo here as we're broadcasting. That's the 1959 snake logo.
Oh, 1959 snake logo.
Yes, it replaced the red, green, blue chimes.
When did they
from
come?
The 50s.
When did they come up with the peacock?
1956 for color broadcast only showed it, and then it stays till the early 70s.
The ABC really? They never had a fun logo, did they? They were just like always ABC. They were like the adults.
They had that like American Eagle. They had this Old West looking thing way, way back where it was like this. It almost looked like it was some U.S. coin or something and said like American Broadcasting Company with like the big banner, like a red, white, and blue starred banner. All it was black and white with an eagle over it. And then later the typical ball with the ABC in it.
Oh, yeah. This is an actual episode.
It is an actual episode?
Yeah, it's going to be on a Monday. This is a Monday sometime in the future.
So do we have flying cars?
But I guess if you're listening to it now, it's not the future. It's right now.
How about that? Wow.
This is somebody you found. This is another one of your finds. How do you
No, this guy, I'm just going to put a warning out there now. I feel like this needs a warning. This guy is dangerous. I go to this website every Friday morning when he puts new stuff out. I tell myself, just sip your coffee, look at the brass models, get on with your job. And then I end up thinking, well, I really could use that, though. I probably buy maybe every couple weeks something from Matthew Dowd. And I met him through John Sacerdoti and the Amherst virtual show of the early part of 2021, I guess it was. They did a virtual show.
Okay.
And Matthew was on talking about brass and his resourcerails.com company. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. What is this? It's like old train stuff, but it's like a lot of brass. And it's like, oh, prices are probably crazy, but I'll go look. And I would say probably I've got about a dozen things I've bought since that time in the last year. And wow. I can't stop buying. And I find all sorts of neat. It's like, wow, that's such an odd duck. I got to have that. So that's the warning that I'll put out that, yes, I'm bringing this person to our AML friends. And I have shared it on the AML fans page before because I've seen people go, oh, I didn't know about that site. Like, yeah, well,
I wouldn't mind resourced rails. I found it. It's resourced, R-E and sourced, resourcedrails.com.
Yeah. And
they got new stuff and used stuff. I wouldn't mind. Yeah. I wouldn't mind an O-scale shay. Do you think he has any O-scale brass shays?
I don't think so, but I did. I almost bought you an HO brass RS1 recently. I thought, Lionel would really like that. And then I thought, well, I shouldn't do that. It's not his birthday, and it's still a long way till Boxing Day. Isn't that how you Canadians do the whole Santa Claus thing? So no, I just waited.
Boxing Day is the day you take it back.
Oh, okay. Well,
Boxing Day is an English thing where it's the day after. See, well, you people are like forced to go right back to work. You Americans, we get a day to digest our turkey.
Oh, okay.
But Thanksgiving isn't as big a deal in north of the border.
Oh.
It's a deal, but not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. Okay. But no, this guy's really awesome. And I got to meet him for the first time at the St. Louis RPM recently. And yes, I also spent money there with him too. I picked up an old nickel plate Berkshire, United Japanese made PFM. Nice and neat in its box and everything. And
well, let's get him in here and find out.
Let's bring him in. Yeah,
let's find out what this guy's deal is. Let's see what's going on, what's happening. Matthew, come on into the studio.
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me today. Absolutely good to chat with you guys both.
Yeah, well, wait till the time is up, and then see how you feel after that.
Yeah. Don't commit just yet.
Yeah, don't commit just yet. Yeah. So, what is this place called? Resource Rails. It's called Resource Rails. What is this place?
Oh, it's the greatest place in the world, let me tell you that. Especially if you're a brass collector like myself or like Tony out there. And Tony, I've got to thank you for your purchases as well along the way. But it's this little company I started about a year ago now. We've been live for about a year. And thanks to all my customers for allowing me to do that. But we kicked off this little company in order to bring brass to the world again. And there's a lot of other wonderful brass dealers out there. But so many of them these days tend to exist in the shadows. And there's a couple big ones out there as well. And we kind of felt that there's a little bit of a need to bring this great classic brass as well as new brass back to the mainstream. It really involves some younger folks in this process too. So yeah, resourcerails.com. It's a website. We sell brass. We sell a little bit of plastic and die cast, and even occasionally a stuffed Illinois Central pig there just for you, Tony. But
yeah, that was my big bonus.
And there you go.
Matthew's doing a video on Facebook where he's touring. He's moved recently. He's in the Chicago area. And he's showing, here's our, these are our shelves. Here's where the stuff is kept. Like, here's the popcorn peanuts and the tape for the boxes and where we get everything. And as he's walking by this thing, I see this big orange stuffed pig with the black eyeball ICG Illinois Central Gulf logo on. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Go back. I got to have that. And so I emailed him saying, hey, I really got to have that pig. How much for the pig? And he said, it's yours next time you buy. So, I buy something. He sends me the pig, but he didn't tell me the pig's got a little music box in it. So like on his tummy, you can turn him over, wind it up, and it plays I've Been Working on the Railroad. I mean, for an ICG guy like me, it's a collectible like you would. In fact, and I have to keep it at least about 8 feet off the floor at all times. Because, of course, when it starts playing that, my dog Bandit comes in and looks at it like, hey, look at that toy you got me. It's like, oh, yeah, no, never. Yeah.
Fun fact, Tony, that came from Assistant General Road Foreman of the Illinois Central Railroad. So I think he had a sense of humor there as well from that one.
That's classic.
Yeah, it really is.
For a railroad that couldn't get around to painting all of its locomotives after 20 years, they still had things in black IC and GM&O paint in the late 80s after merging in 72. Yet they made stuffed pigs with music boxes in them. So it's priorities, I guess. But I digress. But there's one of those bonus things that, Matt is that much of a great guy that I even got a pig out of the whole deal.
So am I to understand all future purchases for everybody comes with an Illinois Central stuffed pig?
I'm afraid it was a one of a kind, and I begged and I got it. So no,
it may truly have been a one of a kind, Tony. I don't know. You might be the only one in the world that has one of those right now. I haven't seen another. How about that?
There you go. Yeah. So you've started about it, because that's the thing. I dove in here talking about this, but back us up a little bit because this was the Amherst show. And you were on, I think, that Sunday afternoon, and I'm kind of paying attention to the various presentations as I'm working on magazine layout. And then all of a sudden you come on talking about brass and just like, boom. I think I went that day, found your site, bought something. I'm like, where did this guy come from? This is amazing.
Yeah, we kicked it off like, oh goodness, I've got to crank the Wayback Machine back here. We started the business back in July of 2020, and we all know what that looked like in the global scale of things.
Time out. We're recording this in August of 2021, so the Wayback Machine goes a lot farther than 12 months.
It's been a whirlwind 12 months.
That I'll accept. It's maybe been a whirlwind, but it's not the Wayback Machine.
Well, let's back up even farther than that. There was a little 3-year-old kid that got his first Lionel train set for Christmas, and that's kind of what kicked it all off for me in this hobby, at least. And I've been a pretty serious brass collector now for 10 10, 12 years or so. And one of the ways that I really started to pay for that addiction, we can call it that, frankly, was to find a couple good deals and folks that, maybe 25, $50 less than what it might be worth, and pay them happily, give them what they wanted, make them happy, and then go find somebody else who might, want to pay that few more dollars for that model. It's maybe the wrong thing to do sometimes, but I tell you what, it's got me where I am today. And besides that, the whole take on the hobby for me is really that of providing a great quality product like this, brass in particular, to everybody else. So yeah, we got started in July of 2020, and we kicked off this. I got furloughed from my job, right? Economic crash, and here's a furlough, and right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I said, well, I'm going to go start a business, because that's what you do in the middle of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So and then happily in January of 2021, which is goodness. I mean, it feels like forever ago, but it's only about 8 months ago now. I got in touch with the folks over there at the Amherst Railway Society show, and happy to meet John and chat with him. And we sponsored that show. We said, let's get some exposure, throw our name out there, and bring that resourcetorails.com name to everybody else out there. So that's been the timeline. And, we sold thousands of pieces of brass over the last 12 months. But, we first started acquiring inventory in the early part of 2020.
You've sold thousands of pieces of brass in a year?
We're up over 1,000 pieces right now. Yeah, absolutely. So we've broken that 1,000-piece number.
I'm only in double digits for vinyl. It's not all me. I've only, maybe a dozen or so items in the last year. So
yeah.
So, wow, over 1,000 pieces in a year.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, and you know what's so nice about it? I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I want everybody to get a good picture of this. I buy all kinds of old trains. Everybody knows that. I buy on eBay. I buy at swap meets. I buy on like the Facebook marketplaces. And you never know, and especially on brass, like a good horror story. In the last year or two, I bought an Alco Models, that big U50 with the double, AAR Type B trucks on the gimbal, that Union Pacific. I buy it. I thought everything looked right in the deal. I get it, and it's got the foam had died and turned into dust all around it, and it wasn't wrapped. So literally, it was like pour all of the green sand foam out of the box, and then that's like stuck to and I'm like, I think I ended up having to like actually go into the kitchen and rinse the U50 off and let it dry on the kitchen counter. And yet, here's how I get stuff from Resource. It is professionally, expertly packed. I open it up. The models are wrapped. A lot of times in the original, like, wow, PFM, United logoed clear wrap. There's always a piece of paper in it. I don't know that it's always Matthew, but your other buddy that I met at the St. Louis RPM that does the Workbench Wednesdays on Facebook. What's his name?
Yeah, Rich. Rich is one of our employees. Great guy.
You get a little note card in there that says that they looked at it, like that Berkshire I bought said it has a new Sagami motor with the flywheel, that it's a little noisy but runs well for an old model. So again, that whole I have no idea what I'm getting sort of thing, that is out of the equation, which is so nice. And then the price is still good, though. You think, well, you're going to pay a lot, though, for that confidence in it. But I get some tremendous deals that I pick through this stuff, and it's like, wow, I got to have that.
So what do you call this Wednesday? What is it called? Workshop Wednesday or something?
Yeah, we kicked off a nice little, it's become a weekly thing on Facebook now called Workbench Wednesday. And it's just a post that we throw on our Facebook page, but it usually shows the behind the scenes aspect of what it takes to put some of these models back in service. Tony, you touched on it there. That model that you bought from us at the St. Louis RPM was a 50-plus-year-old model. And there's nothing wrong with it. It had never been operated before. But after 50 years of sitting, there is a little bit of work that needs to be done. So we go through it all. We disassemble it all, lubricate it all. We do a lot of the replacement of the little silicone drive tubes that connect the motors to the gearboxes on brass models. And we generally make sure that it operates properly. But Workbench Wednesday is a Facebook post that we started pretty much since day one. We've been featuring that, and it is truly a behind-the-scenes look at what happens at our shop. And we'll feature restoration efforts, solder work that we do. We just kicked off another one here on yesterday, actually, August 11th, where we did our first new brass update video There's a lot of questions out there about new brass importers. Yes, that's still a thing. You can buy a brand new brass model. We happily are dealers for the remaining importers out there. And we heard a lot of demand for just, hey, can you keep us up to date about what's going on in the new brass world? So we kind of morphed that into Workbench Wednesday as well. But we've got a great social media presence on Facebook. Come find us, follow us, hashtag Resourced Rails on Facebook there, or at Resourced Rails. I love just sharing all of our experiences with everybody out there in the world. It's so great to be able to look back on all these repair and restoration jobs that we've done, and with Rich's help, and just, kind of share that joy that we get out of bringing one of these models back to life, really putting some life back into it.
That's a lot of information there.
It's amazing. And the new brass, that's what been in the last, while we're recording this in August of 2021, it's been what I would say probably since this spring. You're now Division Point, Glacier Park, North Bank, Coach Yard. Did I forget anybody that you're a dealer for all of them?
Yeah, we're happily a dealer for all of those. The only one that you left off that's still on the books right now is Glacier Park Models, but they haven't done anything new in a while now.
So is there still a new? I know Fred Hill from the Coach Yard. I mean, he's still doing quite a bit, isn't he, in new brass?
Fred's a prolific importer of new brass and some of the most beautiful passenger cars you'll ever see.
Yeah, and I mean, he's still going. Like that's a going concern business, the Coach Yard. So
still, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a year ago. It was my August, 2020 issue. I put that Rio Grande steam generator they built out of an Alco PB1 that I got one of those from Fred Hill, and that was on the cover of Model Railroad News. So yeah, new brass is very much, and like Ed Austin is the North Bank line. He's doing some tremendous business cars that he just showed the pilot samples from Boo Rim of the first run, and he told me he's going to work on another run of like the railroad business cars like Western Pacific's Feather River and some of the others. So just awesome stuff. And the thing about brass is it's always, as good as our plastic models are today, I think at least for me, and I think a lot of collectors and modelers, there still is that ooh-ah factor to brass that is kind of that Cadillac Lincoln type, this is more than just a model, it's a brass replica,
It's a piece of artwork is what it is, too.
Yeah.
It really is.
But do you think brass could make any kind of a comeback? I mean, it's 1,000 pieces. Holy mackerel. Like, do you sell, how do you think people are finding you besides you were on the Springfield virtual show? Like, how are people finding you?
It's a lot of outreach. I'm pretty active in a lot of the social media groups. There's a few really good brass specific groups on Facebook there. And a lot of folks have just come to me because word of mouth, Tony, thanks for sharing your wonderful experiences with everybody out there. All my other folks that have bought from me, thank you for sharing those experiences, because that's the best advertising and really the best, maybe the most true, experience that you can share as a positive one firsthand. So, we've been fortunate enough to kind of land at a great time. And, Lionel, I think brass has never really died. It's always been there, and it's always been strong. Maybe not as strong as it was, but there's these 50 and 60 and even in some cases 70-year-old models now that are still available that come up for sale, once every few years. And we are but keepers of these things. We do not own them forever, right? Eventually they're going to get resold.
What a cool idea. And I'm assuming you've just in the last 24 to 36 hours have launched your YouTube channel.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So as a date of recording here in August 2021, we just kicked off our first video there, and we'll be doing some more videos. We've gotten a lot of requests from folks about sharing some of our restoration efforts in video form, as well as, just unboxing of new models. What does a brand new, Division Point steam locomotive look like?
Yeah.
Literally fresh out of the box.
So anybody that's going to look for their YouTube channel, it's simply everything, their Facebook channel, their website, and their YouTube channel. It's all Resourced Rails, and it's RESOURCED and Rails, Resourced Rails. And that's going to be great. I think doing videos of the restorations would be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great content that we've shot already that's kind of just sitting on my iPhone right now, of different solder processes and such. And that's the challenge, right? The hobby for me right now, we talk about a modeler's life. The hobby for me right now is starting this business and being involved in that aspect of it. That's the hobby for me.
Yeah.
So Yeah, absolutely. So I got to get some time to edit those videos and put them all together in something that makes a little bit of sense for the process there. And we'll start getting those up here. I've got enough folks that are helping me out at the business now that I'm getting a few extra minutes to work on projects like that.
So you mean, how do you mean helping you out? Do you have employees or?
Oh yeah, I've got fortunate enough to have found two absolute amazing part-time employees that are working for me, and then I use two other folks that help me out as contractors. I've got this is kind of a fun story. So I ran out of time in my own personal life to keep up with the amount of listing that we do on the website. So I reached out to one of my better customers at the time, and I said, "Hey, you used to sell this stuff." He was a big brass dealer in the '90s. Would you mind helping me out and maybe writing some of the listings for those items that hit our website? And he said, "Yeah, absolutely, not a problem." And the only hurdle we had to solve was that he was about 1,500 miles away in South Florida, not here in Chicago. So I've got a remote contractor that works for me in Florida doing all the listing work.
Wow, you're a going concern. So is this a full-time gig for you?
Believe it or not, it is not a full-time gig for me. I still have a real job.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think I remember what your real job is, and I'm afraid to ask you because Tony, do you know what his real job is?
I know that he had something involvement with railroads in the past, but now I don't know what.
This is going to blow your socks off.
Okay.
This is going to blow your socks off. So what do you do full time right now? Like I know in the past you've been involved with railroads, have you not?
Oh yeah, no, I was a conductor, locomotive engineer, all that kind of stuff for railroads in the past. But my full-time job I worked for BNSF Railway for 8 years out of Chicago here, and then I transitioned over to Amtrak. I had the privilege of operating a couple of those long-distance passenger trains. That was actually kind of a fun job, if we're honest. I miss the simplicity of it sometimes.
And why did you leave that? Just because you wanted a different path, or?
Yeah, I kind of well, this is digging deep here. Why did I leave the job that I absolutely loved? That's a good question. You know what it was is, and this is going to sound, a little ridiculous, but I really wanted the challenge of going out and working for a bit for myself, as well as, leaving maybe that security. I could have stuck with the railroads I hired out when I was 19, and I could have done 41 years on the railroads and gotten my retirement pension. But after 10 years, I decided to go take a little job out in Durango, Colorado, and I left Amtrak to go work for Soundtracks, the model railroad DCC electronics company.
How cool! Is that what you're doing now?
No. That it gets better.
I was going to say, wait a minute. How did I not know this? I know George Bogota.
It gets better. We're going to have to try to make sure we don't get too far away from resource rails. But
no, this is great. I love sharing my story.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you hired with the railroad at what, BNSF, when you were 19?
Yeah, I got out of high school and I said, well, I'll try college for a little bit, and well, frankly, didn't do so well at that. So I said I need to get a real job, and I went down to Kansas City there, and Tony, we were talking about this, and some good barbecue down there, and got hired on by the BNSF Railway, and I worked there for 8 years. I worked as a switchman, a conductor, and then eventually as a locomotive engineer, and I used to run the metro trains out of Chicago too, which was kind of a fun little job. Boy, those F40s! Everybody knocks on those F40s as locomotives, but the secret's out now that it's public. But that is my favorite locomotive. Let me tell you that.
Wow. Yeah. There's another person. I did a thing on F40s recently, and I think Justin Franz, one of the associate editors at Rail Model Craftsman, said, "Thank you so much that no one will but whisper a like for an F40 for fear that someone's going to point or laugh at them." And I said, "No, I think F40s are cool." So see, there's another person in the F40 fan club. Very cool.
Yeah, and they're the quickest locomotive you'll ever operate. Let me tell you that.
That's why they're made for passenger service.
Oh yeah,
and commuter service.
So I left there and I went over to Amtrak for 2 years as a locomotive engineer, and I was pretty lucky to be able to operate some of the same routes that I operated on when I worked for BNSF. So it was a pretty easy transition for me to go over to that lifestyle, and I did that right when. I have to think back now. That was 2015 when I left Amtrak, and at that point, it had gotten so slow where there were so many employees around that I was only working, maybe 7 or 8 days a month, and that's kind of tough when you're in that situation. So, at that point, I said, well, I can leave the security of a regular railroad job, and this opportunity to move to Durango and work for Soundtracks popped up, and I said, yeah, let's do it. And fortunately, my wife jumped on board and said, sure, we can do it.
So how old were you when you left Amtrak?
Oh man, I've got to think back now.
It's only, you said 2015. That's like 6 years ago.
Yeah, a lot has happened in 6 years.
How
let me
old
tell
are you
you.
now? Let me help you out.
30. Yeah, I was going to say basic math escapes me now. I'm 36 now, so I was 30 when I left Amtrak.
Okay, so you worked for the railroad for basically like 11 years. Huh?
Yeah, just short of 11 years.
Okay, and then, well, how would a job for a guy that's a locomotive engineer for Amtrak, how would a job for Soundtracks make its presence?
Well, I've had a very good relationship with a lot of folks in Durango for a long time now on a friendship level, and the opportunity popped up. Soundtracks was looking for an audio engineer, and I'll tease another little thing. In a previous life, when I was before I worked for the railroad, I was doing audio engineering work. So
wait a minute, you started working for the railroad when you were 19.
Yeah, and throughout high school and before that, I had been working for a couple different theater production companies and doing some live sound work for them. And I popped off that engineer's cap and I put on the audio engineer's cap for Soundtrack.
So while you were in high school, you were working as an audio engineer for local theater companies.
You got it. Yeah, actually, I was pretty fortunate. The high school that I went to here in the suburbs of Chicago had a great theater program and a wonderful auditorium space that had a great tech package. So I was actually able to work for my own high school, and I got paid to work some of those after hours gigs that weren't, maybe necessarily school affiliated, but were renting the space. So one of the craziest shows I ever did was a Christian rock band, but it was a Korean Christian rock band. So everything was in Korean. I had no idea what I was listening to.
Wow.
That's some of my favorite music is Korean Christian rock.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was mine too then.
Do you know a guy named Stephen Hayworth?
Yeah, I don't. No.
Oh, okay. He lives in Des Plaines.
Oh, that's where our shop's at. Huh. Okay.
How far from Des Plaines Hobbies are you?
Oh, we are about 3.5 miles north of Des Plaines Hobbies. We're on the very north side of Des Plaines there. And we've got a great relationship with those guys. Boy, if we probably talk to each other once or twice a week, they're, helping out where we can.
I'm sure. So how did these, how would anybody at Soundtracks know that you have audio engineer? So you never went to school to be an audio engineer. You just were self-taught through high school, doing it locally and all that. So how would anybody at Soundtracks know that you were an audio engineer?
I've got a very good friend out in Durango who actually happened to hear through Nancy Workman, who is the co-owner of Soundtracks, that they were looking for an audio engineer. And this good friend of mine had just left Amtrak about 9 months earlier. We actually worked together as locomotive engineers in the same territory in Chicago. So he left to go work for a company out in Durango. And about 9 months later, he said, you've been talking about maybe want to leave the railroad, go out and do something completely different. I might have an opportunity for you. And he kind of referred me over to Nancy Workman over there at Soundtracks. And that's kind of how it all got started. And craziness.
Was this friend a model railroader?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great guy. His name is Mike May. He's a White Pass and Yukon modeler. Figure that one out. Yeah.
And is he still in Durango?
Yeah, and he's we should get him on board. I'll have to get you his information because he's another really fun guy to talk to. An incredible modeler too, great 3D printer guy, and got a beautiful White Pass and Yukon layout out there in Durango as well.
Wow. So now, Matthew, you said your first train set was Lionel, so like a O-gauge 3 rail, and then working for railroads, and then working for Soundtracks. What's your model railroad experience? Because we dropped out there after that Lionel O-gauge set. So did you go to HO, or did model trains kind of have a downtime for a while and you came back to the hobby, or like what's your hobby history?
Oh, yeah, no, as a hobby, I've always been involved. I got bitten pretty early, like we said, at about age 3 there. And, my dad my dad actually kind of got me started into it with Lionel trains. And he had his Lionel post-war stuff from his childhood. And we would set it up around the Christmas tree. And eventually that morphed into the 4x8 sheet of plywood in the dining room. But yeah, I went right over to HO scale. I don't know, a few years later, I had a good family friend who actually gave me a small little 4x8 HO scale layout. And that kind of got me started into HO scale. And then it kind of snowballed from there, for perfectly honest. I think I bought my first piece of brass at age 16 when I was working for a local hobby shop.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I don't have that one anymore, but I certainly wish I would have hung on to maybe that first piece, but I had to let that one go at some point.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm getting dizzy here, Tony.
I don't slow down much, Lionel. I kind of keep moving forward.
Well, and did I mention, Lionel, that Matthew and I collaborate on an HO collector, that back section now, because I always wanted to have brass included on a regular basis, but I just never had the good supply line of stuff to do it for photography and samples. And so brass from the past is now at least a 2-page section, sometimes more, at the back section of HO collector 4 times a year. And that's Matthew's model collection, or things he's selling, where I have access to pictures, and then I supplement it with some information on the prototype, or things from the catalogs from when they were new, and kind of give some background. So he's also in the magazine biz with me, doing that column for HO collector.
I'm telling you, this hobby is my new phrase. It'll never outdo that. Hobbies are going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo. But my new phrase is model railroading. It's younger than you think. is true, because here's Matt, and he's in his mid-30s, and we have tons of guys in their 30s, and because everybody can connect again, it's just me and the same old. But I guess it's because I'm excited, because I think to myself, man, working in my basement by myself, and I had my local few guys that I knew, but the way that I was actually talking to Scott Lister today. We were texting back and forth, and Scott was saying about how excited he is by how many people he's met through the podcast. And here's another guy. And also another thing Matt said was about his dad. There's a whole, like I had my dad got involved, but my father, who was born in the early 20s, or 1919, somewhere in there. I think it was 1921. His father, of course, was never involved in model railroading, and my dad didn't really kind of get a whiff of it until I got interested. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people now in their 30s and 40s who's had influence from their fathers, and 50s too, but it's a whole different dynamic now, Tony. I'm telling you, this hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo.
Well, and it's amazing what Matthew's done here, because when I first saw this, I'm thinking, you're going to deal in used brass. Boy, how much can there be? Where are you going to get this? Like, it's a great idea, but how are you going to keep the sausage factory going there? And yet he's always got cool stuff. And he'll tease us with the pictures of like his van with like the blue tubs or boxes, where he'll say, I just picked up this collection, or I'm going to start going through this. And it's like, ooh, and you'll see all the likes on the Facebook page of all of us wondering what he's come up with. But like, where is all the, how do you go fishing for this stuff, Matthew? Where does it all come from? Because it seems like you're always traveling or picking up collections. How do you get connected to all this?
Well, that keeps me up at night, if I'm perfectly honest. That's one of those challenges associated with selling, a pre-owned product and trying to find it. I've been pretty lucky and pretty fortunate to have some wonderful connections, and particularly one person who has been very helpful in turning me on to a couple very large collections that I've been fortunate enough to find. But, I really got my start. I reached out to Linda of the Jim Walsh collection. And if you guys haven't checked that out yet, you can check it out on her website. She is selling some of her late husband, Jim Walsh's models, And Jim had some just absolutely amazing brass models, really early Japanese production stuff, and a lot of just really high quality stuff. Jim had the best of the best. So we kind of got our start that way. And I just reached out to Linda. She was looking for some help with some of the, we'll say the lower price point models. She's selling some models that are $2,500, $3,000. So she was looking for some help for some of those lower price models, and I was able to kind of fill that gap and help her out a little bit. So but a lot of outbound research, a lot of phone calls, a lot of paying attention to social media, and a lot of no's really has gotten me to where I am today. For every collection that I get in, there's probably 5 collections that don't make it in my door.
And people, and when you say no's, you mean people that don't want to sell to you? Is that what you're saying?
Well, mainly more so along the lines of, no, we're not ready to sell at this time, or maybe, we want to take a different route for the sale of the collection, or just, generally speaking, I've got to be pretty aggressive in my outreach. So, sometimes I'll reach out and see that somebody might have 20 or 30 pieces for sale and offer to potentially bring them in on consignment. And they say, well, no, I'd much rather try to sell them myself, which is totally understandable. You've got to do what's best for each individual situation in that case.
Wow. This is pretty cool, eh, Tony?
And it is. And I know you also do a little bit of plastic, like at the St. Louis RPM. I know Shane bought some in-scale plastic from you. So
Yeah.
I guess, does that just kind of come along? Your focus obviously is brass, but they might say, oh, by the way, I have this too, and that just comes along, or do you actively go after some of the vintage plastic too?
A little bit of both. With any brass collection comes some plastic. With any plastic collection comes some brass, usually. It's just a matter of what ratio those two, particular styles of models come in. So, yeah, we do a little bit of plastic. That N-scale stuff that Shane bought has been sitting around my shop for a little bit longer than I would have liked it to. But we actually got a hold of that about a year ago. So I'm glad he took a few pieces.
He was very happy, yes. He told me a couple of times, like, oh, that was a really good deal. I was thrilled to get that. I'm always happy with everything I get from Resource Rails, price wise, and the quality of it. It's, fantastic. And that's, you talked about that one lady and how the stuff is more expensive. That's one thing. I mean, you certainly do have some expensive items on your site, but I think one of the things I find so inviting is some of I like that, like 60s, 70s era brass Alco models, PFM, those kind of things, because that also fits kind of my plastic area interest of like old Athearn Blue Box and AHM and Bachmann. So those brass items were kind of those high-end things. As a little kid, Dad always had like the PFM catalogs or Hallmark catalogs, and I'd see that, but Dad never really had any brass. And I would, hobby shops back in those days maybe always had a couple of brass items, so I'd see them, but that was always something very elusive or exotic that you never saw. But I look at it now and it's like, oh, I'd like to have some of that. And that's the fun thing about your site. Like, I'll give a couple examples I picked up. I had one of the Trains Incorporated, which was Jim Conway of Concor. He was involved in a brass import thing around 1970. And they did that RS 1325 EMD switcher that C&IM had the only two ever built. And I bought one years back. And then you had one recently, and I think it was like $100 or $120.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, my dad custom painted the one, but it's like, it would be awesome to have one in just brass finish, not done. So like I had to get that. I think I picked up the Hallmark, those little Missouri Pacific Babyface Baldwin AB units. They're like Baldwin's version of like an F unit that I think only Mopac and like New York Central, only a few roads had them. And you had that set, of course, in the box, Hallmark. And I think it was like $150 or something. I mean, again, that's that stuff that, that Friday morning when you put new stuff up and I'm sitting there sipping my coffee looking and think, wow, I can't not. That's really cool. Like, how can I not have a set of those Babyface Baldwins for $140? Like, done, sold.
I get more people telling me when I put that announcement out on Friday mornings, they open up their computer and there's this air of nervousness. What do I need to buy?
Yes. I told Matthew at the RPM, I said, I was so disappointed a couple weeks ago. I sat down for some reason, because when you work from home, you lose all track of what day it is. Like, oh, it's Sunday? It's like you have no idea what day of the week it is. And I had sat down, and for some reason I had it in my head it was Friday. So I'm opening his site. Like, I first looked at Facebook. He usually puts out a thing like, here's the link to this week's news stuff. Like, well, he must not have put it up yet. And it's about 7:00 in the morning. I think I must be ahead of him, but maybe it's on his website. And I'm looking, it's like, there's nothing. I'm like, man, that's such a bummer. And then it finally hits me. It's Thursday. And I'm like, oh, I got all excited this morning, ready to like, let's savor some new brass. And it's like, that'll be tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay.
Tony, you brought up a good point, though, kind of about our price point on those models. And, that price range, maybe for diesels as well as for steam locomotives, maybe in that $250 to $350 price range, is really the most affordable brass out there, and that's kind of our bread and butter. That's what keeps the lights on at the business. That high end stuff is great. I absolutely love having that, and as a collector, it's wonderful to see that stuff come in. And believe me, it is beautiful stuff. Some of that W&R and Challenger imports and late run key and even the new Division Point and Coachard stuff we were talking about earlier. But it's that $250 to $350 steam locomotive or that $150 diesel locomotive that really is what we love to sell, because most people can afford that. It's no more expensive than any nice plastic model out there these days.
And that's the fun thing too, is again, like when I bought that Coachard steam generator, I think it wasn't over $1,000, but again, it was like, wow, really? It's like, oh, that's a lot of money. And it's like, but this stuff, again, you can buy it, and when you get it, you don't feel guilty. Like, well, I spent like $100 or $150 or $200 on this. That's about what I'd spend on a plastic diesel. And look, it's a little brass set of whatever from Alco Models or PFM. How cool is that?
Yeah.
You must be learning a lot about brass, like in general. Like when did you become interested in this idea to have this resourced rails? I mean, I know we have to go into the Wayback Machine because it's a whole year ago.
It's been the craziest year of my life, if I'm honest.
All right. But when did the seed of this idea take place?
I have been kind of buying and selling and flying under the eBay flag for many years now. And really it came out of, and this has been something I've been thinking about for probably about the last 2 years now. And I started when I moved back to Chicago in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, the fall of 2019. I said, one of the things that I want to do is to really grow and further myself and, really put myself out there and start a business. And that's kind of what it was back in 2019. I know that only back in 2019, 2 years ago, but it feels like a long time ago when things have been moving so fast and so quickly. But I've always loved brass. I've just always been fascinated by it, the history behind it, the low production quantities when you compare it to an Athearn model. Nothing wrong with an Athearn model, but
no, I get what
certainly
you're
not produced in the thousands. Yeah. Just the fascinating history of these brass models and their collectability, their affordability on many of these really prompted me to do this. So about 2 years ago is when I got this cockamamie idea. Let's start a brass company, and it took me about 6 months to really get enough gumption to get up and do it. And getting furloughed for about 6 weeks gave me the time to start that business.
And how did you find your first? You were telling me when I was last talking to you when we were checking your audio. Speaking of being an audio guy, hey, you could be the official audio guy of the AML network.
There you go.
So you said when we were talking before that you have a guy working for you. Like, how did you find him? Like, what's his name again? The first fellow that started working for you?
Oh, Rich. Yeah, Rich is a great guy.
How did you find Rich?
So he was actually a customer of mine, and he bought a model from me. And he was working for a different hobby shop in the Chicagoland area at the time. And I think he's ready to make a switch, maybe do something a little bit more interesting for him. He's a brass enthusiast too, big, great Northern collector, and a bigger one after he started working for me. And he wanted to kind of jump in and give me a hand. He was retired and a longtime school administrator and teacher, and just wanted to kind of get back into this brass, model hobby side of things. And he got his, first 10 Shoto Great Northern piece a few years ago, and has just absolutely loved all that classic brass since. So Rich was a good find. I hate to say we stole him away from a local hobby shop here in Chicago, but he was happy to come give me a hand.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So now I'm just scrolling through your Facebook page. And by the way, I was while we were talking, I texted George. What's George's last name? From Soundtracks.
Oh, George Bogatuk.
Yeah. Bogatuk, yeah. If he listens to this now, he's going to be mad. So I got to get him back on here, too. So I just texted George Bogatuk, asked him if he knew a guy named Mike May, and he was like, yes, sir. And then I said, do you know Matt Dowd? Yep. And so while we were texting back and forth, he was telling me about how much you know about brass. And then I was scrolling through your Facebook page, and I saw this on July 6th. You posted EMD F3AB set by Overland Models that was Delaware and Lackawanna and Western. And it says here there was only 10 of these. Now that's kind of the fascinating part of brass, isn't it? That there's a lot of models that had really, really low production models or numbers.
Yeah, that's what probably interests me the most, and it's also what swings prices the most too on stuff like that. Those particular Delaware Lackawanna Western F3 units, there was, I believe, 10 of the A units and only 8 of the B units ever produced. But we were pretty lucky. We had a 1 of 5 model come through the shop about 6-7 months ago here, and really rare, what we call a direct import model. So instead of using Pacific Fast Mail, which was a very common importer all the way up into the 90s, the builder United Models just imported them directly to the United States, but only 5 of them made it here. So we were pretty lucky to have one of those come through.
They imported 5 to the United States?
5 made it to the States. They produced a few more, and some, might have come over later in life, so to speak, but only 5 were ever imported in. It's a Benson Logging Company Shea NHO scale. So a pretty unique model.
No, but we're talking about the F units.
Oh, the F units. Yeah. Those were 10, 1 of 10 and 1 of 8, period, ever produced by Ajin. Yeah. Beautiful models.
And they were sold by Overland.
Mm-hmm. Overland models. Yeah.
So do you have any idea of how would it happen that a company would only produce 10 models? Like, what would be I don't know, how do I ask this question, Tony? Like, what would be the basis for a company only having, like, these things must have been, I guess what people need to realize is back in the day, these were made like pieces of jewelry.
Well, they still are. That's the amazing thing about brass models is they're all hand assembled and they're all limited production run models. And that's why there's only 10 of that particular F3 unit out there is that, and just to clarify, during that run of models. So when Overland Models said, hey, we want to do F3 locomotives, EMD F3 locomotives, they built other road names at that time too. So they had the drives pretty well figured out, and you can do that on the economy of scale. But those 10 specific locomotives that they brought in were all detailed uniquely for that railroad. So you can do that in brass. It's not like these mass-produced models that we see today, where you've got to run 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 quantities and to really get that production return on investment there. In brass, you can do a much lower production run.
I think isn't that, Matthew, like is it Division Point, when they bring in some of those F unit sets? I think I've heard before, like about a dozen is the threshold of, okay, yeah, we have enough reservations to do it. That's how handmade those are, that there may only be a dozen.
Yeah, one of the ongoing projects that the Division Point is working on right now, and we've got a great relationship with Jack Vansworth, the owner of Division Point. So we talk all the time. It's great to hear the pulse of that company and that part of the hobby from him. But one of the models they're working on right now is a really exclusive and really unique model. It's a Union Pacific coal turbine locomotive, number 80 or number 8080 later in life. And there's only 60 of those, period, that are going to get produced, 60 total in the whole run. And when you break it down by 30 of one road number and 30 of another, it's interesting just to see, how finite those quantities can get. And it goes even smaller when you get into like multiple road variations, road number variations. We see a lot of these plastic manufacturers doing road specific details, and brass and even road number specific details. Brass kind of paved the way for that, where you can do these really small production runs and get really finite, really accurate models.
Now that turbine you're talking about, that 80, is that new run, and that's the one that is a PA front, and was it a Great Northern Electric that they bought its Hulk and turned it into whatever, and then it has a tender? It's that big 3-unit beast that Union Pacific had, right?
Yeah, only the Union Pacific could come up with that combination.
Exactly. And I think you even showed, this is a neat thing, Lionel, about following his Facebook page on New Brass. I think if you look on his Facebook, I think you had some shots of like flat sheets of some of the stuff for the body shells, like here's some of the test sheets of what'll be folded or bent together to make those pieces, which is fun to see how that process goes together.
It's incredible to get those photos when they come out of the builders in Korea. And these days, a lot of the high quality brass models, almost all of them for that matter, are built in Korea. And we were fortunate enough to secure permission to share those photos from another dealer, another good friend of ours too, Dennis Bartholow at ELS Train Services, had those photos, and he allowed us to share those on the page.
What is ELS Train Services?
Oh, sounds like somebody else you need to get on the show here too.
I'm only one man, for God's sake.
ELS Train Services and Dennis Bartholow, I'll give him a quick plug here. They do, he does, it's his company, does a lot of decoder and sound installations in brass locomotives. And that's not something that we do here at Resourced Rails. We just don't have the bandwidth, frankly. But his company does it, and they do a wonderful job with it. He's also one of the other dealers for some of the new brass imports.
Oh, yes, I know. I stumbled across his website. He makes bench work as well, and there's really cool gates, you know, that you can have for your bench work. I've actually almost encouraged me to start another layout just so I can buy one of his really cool gates. Man, this is... have you ever heard of ELS Train Service, Tony?
I've heard the name before, but I don't think I've ever really contacted him or run anything for his company in the magazine. So I need to look into that.
That's the fun part about this too, is, you know, the brass community is much smaller than the general hobby community, right? We all kind of have our niche within the hobby, you know, structure guys, resin freight car guys, passenger car guys and gals. And, you know, the brass community is a really tight knit community of folks that appreciate this. And, you know, we're happy to share this information. And I'll be the first person to say, you know, hey, I don't have that model in stock right now, but, you know, why don't you give these guys a call? They might have one, and they might be able to help you out with this DCC project, or, you know, this paint project that you're looking to do.
This, I'm looking at the Division Point website, and they have these cab forwards.
Oh, yeah.
Man, oh, man, they're spectacular, too.
You know, stay tuned to our Facebook channel, as we're going to do an unboxing video of one of those when they come in. And they're going to have DCC and sound and all the lights on it.
Yeah. And how much will they be? Do you know?
Well, you know, they do come with a premium price tag with a model like
that's
that.
fine. You know, you know what I always say to people? I've got 2 Harley Davidson motorcycles, and I can't ride both of them at the same time, but I have 2 because, you know, and I mean, they're not cheap, and it's, you know, it's whatever people, it's just like I'm always talking to my buddy Rob Arsenault about he does weathering, is weathermytrains.com. Hi, Rob, how you doing? And, you know, I'm always saying to him, you know, he's always kind of, well, I'm charging, and I'm thinking, but if people want somebody to do excellent weathering, they hire him. You know, people pay for what they pay for, and it really doesn't matter if whatever these cab forwards sell for, because for the people that want them, they want them. And
they're all sold out too. The entire reservation. Now, granted, it's only, I think it's 85 or 90 pieces in this run. Might be 100. I'd have to confirm that, but they're all sold out. So every one of those models has a home, which is incredible to think about.
I know that's the other thing is it seems like every manufacturer now is coming up short on the number of pieces they should make. So how much does this cab forward cost?
That one is pushing the $4,000 number.
Okay. Yeah. But there are people out there that want it.
Absolutely. And, you know, there is some more affordable new brass out there, too. You know, we've seen this big resurgence in business cars and official cars. Not a lot of those were ever made in plastic. So many road-specific details, so many car-specific details, too. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of those models come out from the Coach Yard and from North Bank Line, Ed Austin there, Tony, as you mentioned. And, you know, those cars are still about $900 to $1,000, but you know, you get what you pay for. And I've said that for a long time. You know, you're buying a lower production quantity, almost a collector's item, but it can still be operated on the back of that passenger train. So it's a great car.
That's Ed Austin, who's done like some SP&S books and other things. I think I don't know who else is involved in that, or if it's just him, Matthew, but he started with, I think, those business cars, and it seems like he had something else. He had some SP steam locomotives.
Yeah. So Ed had, I believe he's flying solo. I don't think he has any partners right now, at least not publicly. But Ed got his fame. He and Tom Dill, who I believe just passed away, actually, I could be wrong there, wrote some Southern Pacific books. And Ed got back into the brass market here with the North Bank Line, announced some very nice business cars in 2020. And we'll be seeing those for delivery in late 2021 here. So late Q3, early Q4. But yeah, those are all sold out. Just incredible models. And he's actually teasing a second run of those models too. Check out our Facebook page. Some different business cars coming in one of the projects he's teasing, this is kind of a personal plug, so I'm going to put it out here, is the Ferdinand Magellan, the presidential car, United States Navy USN #1. So stay tuned. Hopefully we see that in the future.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that one, Matthew, because when I was writing that up for the magazine, that one caught my eye. And is that the one that has an automobile in it, or what was the other business car that had somebody's like Packard or something was taken around with him? Which car is? I can't remember which car that is.
It is not the Ferdinand Magellan, but it is another car in that run there. I believe it's a Northern Pacific business car. Might have been like one of the Hills or something like that. Some big name in there.
And he took his car with him and kept it in the business car, and I thought that was really intriguing because it's going to be in the model. It said we would have that in the interior, and it's like, oh, how cool.
Does North Bank Line have like a website or anything that people can?
I don't think he does he, Matthew? Because when I've written up the news on that stuff, I don't think there is.
No, and that's one of the reasons why I started this monthly brass update video here in August, is that a lot of these importers still we'll call them a bit old school in the sense that they don't necessarily have the web presence or the social media presence to get this kind of information out.
Wow, and yet there's no way that brass is going to go away. I think brass is going to start to become, just by the way you guys are talking about these business cars, and just by the popularity and Division Point building these cab forwards. I don't see any way that brass is going to go away. If anything, I wouldn't be that shocked if it has a resurgence.
I mean, and that's incredible to think. Yeah, like Ed Austin saying there is not. I've just brought up what I have in. It's in October 2021's Model Railroad News, where it's a preview of his next group, and I show a picture of the Western Pacific Feather River test sample from Boo Rim. And yeah, Ed's got a phone number and he's got a Gmail address. It's like NBLEAA, which I assume NBL North Bank Line, and EAA is probably Ed Austin Associates, and at Gmail. So you can email him or call him, and he's sold these out without a website. I know he's bought some full page ads in Model Railroad News, but again, that's the interest in this is such that it's like you think, well, how could you sell or do all this? And yeah, that one car, it was Great Northern A22. The second group he's talking about would have that, and it's Lewis Hill's private car, which included his Packard automobile carried inside, 2 Southern Pacific cars, Oregon and Portland, Wade Pelzer's Virginia City, and then, as Matthew said, that U.S. presidential car, the Ferdinand Magellan, which I think, isn't that, Matthew, that was almost like Air Force One before there was an Air Force One, that like when the president traveled around the country, I think up through like Truman or into Eisenhower's presidency, that was like the presidential car like the plane is today.
Yeah, you nailed it. It was truly the first Air Force One equivalent when trains were the best way to travel throughout the country. There's a great story about that car, and I won't take too long, but apparently, and this is all hearsay, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the first president to use that car, and he made the comment that he enjoyed traveling the country at all of 35 miles an hour in that car to enjoy the countryside. So it'll be a neat model when it does get produced. Overland Models did a run in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'd have to check that exactly. But those are extremely hard to find. And I've actually been doing a lot of the research on that U.S. Navy car, US-1 Ferdinand Magellan, myself here too, in conjunction with our friends over at the Pullman Library at the Illinois Railway Museum. So that's kind of my first try at putting together a research package myself.
Oh, cool. Wow, I didn't know that.
Busy guy.
This is bizarre. This is just this. It's like I think to myself sometimes, I just got to shut this podcast down because every friggin' rabbit hole leads to another rabbit hole, and it's like it's just crazy. This hobby is so big. This hobby is so big that none of us have ever had the opportunity to realize it. I can't even imagine what this hobby is going to be like in 20 years. You're lucky to be in your mid-30s, because when you're in your mid-50s, you're going to be going, holy smokes.
I know. I'm glad I'm in my mid-30s. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Not you.
Oh, what?
You look great. You look great, Tony.
But no, I'm not going to pass for mid-30s,
no,
you don't think? Okay.
No.
All right.
Lionel, I'll echo that and say that we've never been more connected as a hobby because of technology. And we've never had the ability to share more of our accomplishments, whether that's modeling or brass work, whatever it might be, because of that technology. It's great. And, it's younger generations like myself. And, there's even another gentleman on the East Coast who does a little bit of brass selling here and there, who's about 10 years younger than me. And I look and I say, we're the next generation. we're the ones that have to carry the torch forward in the hobby.
Yeah, you got to keep the brass. I think brass is going to see a resurgence with guys like you. People will start looking for, like, these business cards are going to be very popular, and and once they realize, what is Boo Rim Precision?
Oh yeah, Boo Rim Precision is one of the premier builders of brass models. So we've got importers, which are the North Bank Line, Division Point, Coachyard. Those importers work directly with builders such as Boo Rim Precision or Samtech Model Company in Korea to actually execute these builds, and they're the ones that take drawings and turn them into artwork. Frankly, on these new cars, they're incredible.
And do you know much about Boo Rim Precision? I mean,
a little bit. Tony, you can help me out here too, because you get a lot of these requests too, I'm sure. But Boo Rim Precision is a company out there that has been building for about 25 years now. They got their start with Overland models. Actually, they did some work for Overland in the 90s. But it's a father and son team out there, which is incredible. And they've got a small amount of employees that work for them directly that do everything, and they outsource some of the work, but everything from the etching work to get these car sides put together, to the casting work for the details on the cars, and the painting work. And they do just exquisite work on these cars and these models.
And I think, isn't a lot of it, Matthew, when you think of stuff being made like that, you picture like where Rapido will show a factory, like in China, making the stuff assembly line. But brass is a little bit different. I think it's almost like parted out that certain people do soldering work or certain people do the mechanism things, that it's almost as if you knew a group of different, like, this guy's going to put all the mechanics in my model. This guy's going to paint and letter it for me. This guy's going to solder everything together. That again, it's more of a handcrafted thing. This is not that kind of assembly line like you'd imagine with, say, a Bachmann or Rapido or something like that putting together products.
It's exactly that. It's truly a handcrafted model out there. And that's why the production runs are a little bit lower. And that's also why the cost is a little bit higher than a production model from Rapido or from Athearn or from any of those plastic companies or die-cast companies out there. But it's what keeps the models unique and keeps them interesting too. You're able to do these prototypes that you would never see done in plastic. And I say never with an asterisk there, because I've said that a couple times about brass models. And we're lucky to have them in plastic now too. But it's truly craftsmanship and artwork out there in Korea. And the next generation is taking over there as well, from the manufacturing standpoint, the production standpoint. It's nice to see them wanting to continue this business and continue to produce these models for us to have here in the States and across the world.
There's going to be a resurgence in this. I bet you any money.
No, I sure hope so, because I bet a lot of money.
So I'm looking at some photos of Boo Rim Precision. And you know what? Not unnerving. The complimentary part of this is, I hope Michelle or Tracy or Angela Sutton or any of those or Kaylee, I hope none of them are listening to this, because these photos I'm looking of Boo Rim Precision, it's all ladies putting these models together.
So, it's pretty common.
Yeah. So, it really, the heart of model railroading is done because the ladies can, and of the females of the human race can do it a lot better than guys can.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and that's a tradition that has kind of rung true for many years in brass model work. You look back at photos of models being built in the 70s and 80s and in the 90s, and you'll see that same common theme right there.
There's a picture here of a young lady. She's got a book of locomotive photos and diagrams, and she's looking at her computer screen, and I guess she's laying out the plans and everything for making. Like, us guys are just kind of like the riffraff of the hobby, I think.
It's certainly something. I think what's
just bizarre. This whole thing is bizarre. I cannot believe the number of people. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Matt, but that's
good.
That's pretty much the way the podcast goes. I cannot believe the number of people, Tony, we have met, and the number of paths and rabbit holes and all the information we have gathered by doing this podcast. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
And as Matthew said before, too, the social media element, like, that's how I found him, was the virtual Amherst show.
Yeah.
And then it was like, whoa, wait a minute. I think that week I suddenly was like emailing him, hey, I'd like to use these pictures. Hey, this would be a great thing. We could do an HO collector. And hey, I also bought this. I'm eager to see it. I mean, and how would you found out about that stuff without, all the contact and stuff we have now, which I wanted to bring up too, because this is something I get asked, especially through HO collector, who will buy old trains or who would purchase brass. And that is something that's on, and Matthew certainly should speak to this, not me, but that's on your website. So if someone's listening to this saying, hey, I know somebody that's been wondering, who might buy brass or et cetera, but you've got a page on your website, Matthew, that explains that if someone's looking to sell items to you.
Yeah, and that's really, I appreciate that because that's very helpful for us too. We do purchase pre-owned brass models, anywhere from 1 to 1,000 pieces, as I say these days. And we offer a whole bunch of other services associated with collections as well. One of my specialties and one of the things that I really pride myself on is a broad knowledge of the brass marketplace and of the models that have been produced. So not only do we offer purchase services, but we offer collection appraisal services and evaluation services as well for estate planning and such. Nobody likes talking about that topic, right? But by the same token, it's great to leave those around you that might be responsible for the disposition of your collection the knowledge and the wherewithal to do so properly. So, we say we offer expert appraisals with caring service. And that's truly who I try to be with all the folks that I deal with out there.
So how do you determine how much, first off, before we go on, I pretty much stumbled through that whole thing of trying to describe that at Blue Rim Precision, it's all ladies putting the models together. And obviously they're much better at modeling building than we are. And I pretty much stumbled through that, Tony. And you're a wordsmith. Help me out here. Make me sound a lot better.
As I think was said earlier, it's an art, and I think that there is, again, there's something to that of that. It's almost in a way like sewing or making something like that. That it takes real, skill, and again, there's an art to brass, and I'm sure guys can do it too. But yeah, pictures I've seen that, a lot of times that's who puts those things together, and it's amazing. They're works of art.
It's an attention to detail too. Really, it is. As a guy myself, I look at my wife and she keeps my life together at times, but it's that attention to detail too that we see there.
Did your wife lose a bet or something?
Oh, no, I just love her very much. And I'm appreciative.
That's very good. How do you sleep? How do you turn your brain off at night and go to sleep?
Oh my, that's another loaded question. Sleep is a premium these days. What do I do to relax? I really enjoy just kind of sitting around and listening to music. That's kind of my thing. That's kind of what I do. And I'll rock out to something, and then usually I can go to bed pretty quickly.
What's one of your favorite tunes to go to if you're really looking to wind down?
Oh, I'm a big bluegrass music fan.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of my jam. I'm a big fan of a classic bluegrass artist who made it big in the rock world first and then was able to do his thing later in life. John Hartford is an artist who's a great bluegrass artist out there. And I'll usually kick something from his on and try to fall asleep. I do that on the airplane a lot. I travel a lot we didn't even talk about my current real job. I travel a lot for my current real job.
Now we're going to get to the good part. But first off, you must like listening to Ricky Skaggs then.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm a big Ricky Skaggs fan. Anything bluegrass and anything in that genre of music too. I tend to kick over to like Americana too.
Yeah, I know. Tony's always texting me with his favorite bluegrass tunes.
Well,
you put Tony within earshot of a banjo, and boy, I'll tell you, he just turns into it.
There's those that love it and those that can't stand it.
All right. So, what's the farthest? First, let me ask you this question: how do you determine how much brass? Like, you go into somebody's collection, and say they've got, I don't know, for argument's sake, 50 pieces. How in the world do you manage to come up with a price to buy the collection?
Well, I get my crystal ball out and I give it a good shake. No, in all sincerity, we look at a lot of recent sales data. We use guidebooks and guide options that are out on the internet out there for pricing. There's a couple good services via sold listings on eBay. And then also we do use the Brass Guide, which is one of our other friends down there in Florida that offers that service to help us with some of our pricing as well. But really it comes down to condition, rarity, what the market demand is currently for that particular model. And then we usually take a kind of a sum average of all of those recent sales prices and start to try to whittle it down a little bit more specifically.
Wow. Crazy. One other question was, what's the most pieces you've bought in one collection? Because, I know you started out with the Jim Walsh collection, but that was more of you were helping the widow kind of dispense of it. So you didn't buy that whole collection.
Oh no, certainly not. Not all at once. I'll tell you that. That would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she's done a great job retailing it. The single largest haul we ever had was this most recent one. Actually, I take that back. It was the one that we did in May, in which we purchased about 450 pieces of brass at once.
And how, did the person find you, or did you find the person?
A bit of both. Again, I was pretty fortunate to have a contact who kind of put my name out there. He's been involved with reselling collections for a while too, getting a little bit older in age there, and decided to kind of let me try my hand at it for a while.
Wow! And you got that van? I see that you took.
Oh yeah, that's our favorite vehicle over there at the Hertz parking lot these days.
So, how far did you have to? What's the farthest you've traveled in a van to buy a collection?
We've been pretty fortunate. It's only been about 650 miles.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
But that'll probably change too, I guess.
I sure hope so. One of the things we're trying to do is gain a bigger presence throughout the country and really put our name out there for our services that we offer. So I'm hoping some West Coast collections. Hello, California, looking for brass.
Yeah. Well, if you can find me an O-scale Shay, boom. I'll buy that.
O-scale is tough right now. I'll tell you that. I don't have a lot of it on the shelves right now.
No, it's cool. O-scale brass, cool.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. I'll tell you that. We've got might have sold, but I'll have to check. We had a precision scale New York Central J3A Hudson that had been custom painted, and that was one of the first models that I shot with our new camera. And boy, I spent probably an hour just taking photos of that thing.
Wow. And that's the fun thing. Even if you're not. He keeps the sold out items are on the website. So it's fun just to go browsing and looking at some of these items. Because when you click on each listing, he puts about 6 or 8 really nice big pictures up of this side, that side, top, bottom, flipped over so you can see the, made by United Japan, see everything on it. It's fun at times for me just to go and look at some of these models, even though they long sold out. They're not there anymore. But it's like, oh, look at that. I've never seen one of those.
It's a great reference, and that's what I try to keep it up there for.
Crazy. All right. So what do you do on your day job there, Matt? So after you left Soundtracks.
Yeah, so I did a few years with Soundtracks, helped with the development of the Tsunami 2 sound decoder and some of the audio work there. Left Soundtracks, and now I work for a company called Rail Events Incorporated, and we handle major licensing projects with movie studios and other intellectual property companies to produce railroad-themed special events. And our big one is the Polar Express train ride. You might have heard about that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
So that's
I know. That's what I said.
Wow.
I know. I told you.
I didn't know that. I never get past talking to him about brass stuff usually.
I know.
So,
I told you that would blow your socks off.
Wow.
I do a pretty good job of separating the brass side from the real job. I'll tell you that.
So the Polar Express. So what do you do with that? Like, how does that work? Well, you're going to have to help me here, Tony, because I don't even know where to begin asking. Like, how does that work? Well, what do you do? What's the dealio?
We work with railroad museums, tourist railroads, and we actually license out the brand, the Polar Express, to produce the Christmas event on board a moving train. You jump on the train, you take a trip to the North Pole, and you meet Santa, and you come back with your family. And it's a wonderful holiday experience. But we work internationally, too. I've got cohorts that work in the UK, as well as up there in Canada, too. We've got events out in Alberta and out in British Columbia as well.
So what do? You just fly in and kind of set it all up somehow or something?
My responsibility is a licensing and contracting responsibility as well as event support. So a lot of these railroads are capable of producing it themselves, but we give them all I give them all the guidance and the suggestions to help them to execute that event. In my theater background with live sound, has helped me a lot because, we incorporate a lot of those elements within this event to make it a really high quality production.
Yeah, because they have to follow your guidelines. They have to meet your standards, I'm assuming, in order to get the license and to put the show on.
Yeah, you got it. We work with Warner Brothers to produce that event, Warner Brothers. So,
really?
Yeah.
You hear that, Tony?
That is impressive. I had no idea, yeah.
This could be our big break, buddy.
You think? We could get discovered here? We could be,
Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
I knew it would happen eventually.
Matt, can I ask you a frank question? I want to ask you an honest question.
Please.
So at the end of Airport 75, with Charlton Heston, and had Karen Black, and this is the one where Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. is the pilot, and a small plane runs into it, and the co-pilot gets sucked out of the plane, and the pilot gets injured very severely, and all that's left is Karen Black has to fly the plane. And then they decide, well, they're going to lower a guy in, and they lower in first Ensign Ricky, who gets, he gets his ripcord tears him, and he flies off into the sunset. And then they lower in Chuck Heston. Who else would you get in an emergency? And then Chuck, they lower him into the plane. They get him suited. Him and Karen, they've got a thing going. They have a big, they have a big scene and a hug and all this. And the last 15 minutes of the movie is he just lands the plane. Like, that's it. Like, there's, he doesn't get into the plane and go, oh my God, all the hydraulics are gone on the left side of the plane. We're going to have to circle, or we're going to have to do this, that, and the next thing. It's like there's one light out on the dash that says the wheels aren't down. So the last 15 minutes of the whole movie is like kind of anticlimactic. It's like, and he's banging the dash going, oh, the light doesn't come on. I guess the wheels aren't down. And he just lands the plane. Like, whoa, I can't believe that a movie like that ends so flatly. And Tony and I have an ongoing discussion, and you're in the showbiz game. Wouldn't you make it more dramatic at the end?
You have to at some point. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, like the hydraulics are, there's a big black streak down the side of the plane where all the hydraulics leaked out. Anything.
If not Charlton Heston, Harrison Ford, bring somebody in there too.
Yeah, see, Tony, that's just corroborates. We got a Warner Brothers guy telling us here.
There you go. Well, for the remake, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to get the financing for the remake of Airport 75.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be a fantastic film.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be, yeah.
So you go. So the Polar Bear Express. How many of those are done across North America? And I guess they're done around the world, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got about 50 locations around the world. I don't handle them all. I'm not that good.
No.
But we certainly, I'm responsible for, I think this year about 18 or 19 North American hosts that we'll keep track of and help them out as needed. We just go out there and we make sure that they're having a good time performing this event. Really, that's the most important part. And the families are happy that are there too.
Sure, for sure. Yeah. And like I said, they have to meet certain standards because it's a high-end name, and you got to do it properly. So do you have to fly out to each place and kind of check them out and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's the one time I get some sleep is on the aircraft.
So all across North America is where you're doing this, and in the meantime, you're doing this brass resource rails.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate to have a good staff come up and really help me out, people that I trust. And that's part of business, right? You've got to develop really a good core of people to help you run your business and to help you kind of share the same values, right? And share the same values and ideologies that I have. So I'm pretty fortunate. I won't say the business runs itself. It certainly does not. But I'm pretty fortunate to be able to trust those I've got around me.
And now you say you've got four people working part-time.
You got it.
Wow. And what do you think you'll ever, I bet you've already had inklings of, I know you're a long way from doing it. Have you had inklings of perhaps importing something of your own? Like having something produced and made?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to be able to continue on that tradition for the future. I think we're a few years off from the financial requirements associated with a project like that. But yeah, it's certainly something I'd love to try in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great. What would be the project that's kind of eating at you that you're thinking, man, I'd love to do this?
Oh man, without giving away too many secrets.
Yeah, yeah. That's I don't want you to. Yeah, we always talk to the. We always say don't answer any questions you don't want to. But
I would stick to a piece of rolling stock as the first project. It's a bit more affordable, and I really think that while these steam locomotives we were talking about that division point cab forward pushing the $4,000 number, rolling stock and cabooses are still sub 500, 450, that range. So it's a little bit more affordable, both from an initial investment and just wider market base too. More people that can afford that
yeah,
caboose.
yeah. And
So.
for that kind of a thing that's new, like, do you know how many? Like, I see Coach Yard sells a lot of their cars independently, and they also sell them as sets. Like, again, don't answer any questions you don't want to, or give away anything you don't want to give away. But say you were going to produce a caboose that would retail for under $500, $450. Like, how many of those do you think you would make? Like a couple hundred?
Yeah. No, that's certainly not that. Yeah, that's a number that's about right for a production run of cabooses. I don't know exactly how many cars Mr. Austin or Mr. Hill are bringing in right now per run, but the numbers that I've looked at would be about 150 as a minimum quantity.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's something I think I'd like to keep talking to you about, because I think that'd be a pretty exciting process for you.
Oh yeah, and I'd love to keep you guys up to date as we start to move forward with stuff like that.
So what's the next exciting thing that's happened with Resource? Or before we go on, Tony, I see that Young Sheldon is produced by Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it is. I'm checking it out here. And Call Me Cat is also, and there's a couple other shows I'm thinking, is there any chance, Matt, that you can get us like a bit part on one of these shows?
Oh man, don't quit your day job. How about that?
Oh,
jeez.
Let go for the brass ring. Let's see if we can't get a Super Train reboot, and we can be the crew.
There you go. Yeah, $1 million idea there.
Yeah, talk to the big people way, because Tony's dying to get Super Train. At least he wants it on DVD.
You can't find that on DVD. It was that great of a show.
It's never been released. Nope, I've just got old bootleg copies of it. Yeah.
How about BJ and the Bear?
See, there's another, and that would be a great, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's a revival show if I ever heard.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I mean, we're throwing out these great ideas here, and no one, takes the bait on it. I don't know why.
I'm keeping copious notes, guys.
So what's the next exciting thing for Resource Rails?
Just growing into the shoes that we've purchased, so to speak. We've got some big shoes to fill, and continuing to grow that business. The next exciting thing on our radar will be this new video series that we're launching, kind of as we teased earlier on in this podcast, and really just growing into this brass hobby in the market that's out there. I kind of jumped into this pretty quickly, pretty fast, pretty heavy, and I'm learning that there's a lot more involved on the back end side of things too that needs to be addressed. So all that kind of happy jazz associated with the business.
Are you gonna do more shows like you went to the St. Louis RPM? Or are you gonna do like Amherst if it's in? Because it's on for 2022.
Yeah, we've got tables at Amherst secured right now. John was fortunate enough to help us out with that. We'll certainly sponsor that show again. I think it's great to be able to support those shows and those local railroad clubs. I didn't even touch on this. It's terrible. One of the hallmarks of my business is that we do give back to a lot of railway preservation organizations as well as model railroad organizations. So we donate a few $1,000s every year to that cause and various organizations throughout the United States. And really try to support that hobby and try to support the prototype, the real trains side of the hobby as well.
Okay, so who have you donated some money to help them?
Oh, yeah. No, sure, certainly. We've been happy to donate money to the New York Central Historical Society, to the Illinois Railway Museum, the Fox River Trolley Association here around us, and as well as the Amherst Railway Society. We just made another donation to the New York Central Historical Society, as they've been very helpful with the sale of some of these New York Central pieces that we've had. So happy to give back.
Okay, and because that's a really strong group, the New York Central Historical Society.
I visited their archives, assisting with a donation of some O-scale items, and I was just blown away by the amount of incredible New York Central history that they've got over there. It's a pretty amazing group.
Yeah. And I'm looking at some of the stuff now on the website. Like, you got HO scale brass railworks, Delaware and Lackawanna and Western DL and W Lackawanna 42-foot wood milk car, and it's only $174.
You should buy it.
No, but that's what Tony was talking about. There's an HO scale precision scale Pullman 14 section tourist car, $174. There's a lot of stuff on, like you say, it doesn't all have to be a bazillion dollars.
The myth is that brass is expensive and impossible to work on, and I'm here to dispel that myth. It's neither of those two things. What you don't know yet, Tony, is that I'm working on an article too for you called "The Fear of Three Screws," and that's all that holds together a steam locomotive, as you know.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm ogling. He's got Lionel. There's a set of West Side model was the importer, 5-car set of SP Daylight passenger cars. So you got these are the smooth side. The pretty daylight scheme, boat tail obs, dome car, sleeping car. There's an RPO, and I think there's a chair car. So there's 5 brass passenger cars. He's got them for $374.99 for the set in
Factory
the box.
Painted.
Yeah, factory painted. Yeah, and there is a daylight. I assume they came with. You've got a daylight steam locomotive as well that I think is West Side. Yeah, West Side GS4 484. That's $474.99. So, see, if I bought the passenger cars, I probably should buy that GS4 to go with it.
The set is $349?
$374. So $375 for 5 brass passenger cars from West Side. So I'd guess these are probably, 80s? They say made in Japan? So
yeah, they're 70s run, built by Kamada. The cool cars, though, for what they are. They're brass car sides, and that's one of the first, you can call it a hybrid model there, Tony. It's got a plastic floor on it.
Oh, I didn't know that, and I'm even more intrigued.
Yeah. Tony, I think right here, right now, you better tell him to hold those.
I didn't know that. Okay, I'm intrigued by that. 70s? Yeah. I got to look that up. Yeah,
that's right up your alley. That's right up your alley. That kind of original stuff. I'm kind of looking at this HO scale, precision scale, Pennsylvania Railroad N8 caboose unpainted, $135.
I was looking at that too. Yeah, because I just got that Pensy Society book on cabooses. And so I was just looking at those today, and then I saw that too. Yeah, $134.99.
Here's one for Chris Stilson. HO scale, the Car Works North Shoreline GE Elko steeple, $475.
Somebody better buy that one before it goes in my personal collection.
There you go.
It's funny because sometimes I'll buy these, and I usually will always email him back because the computer thing generates, your order is in or whatever. And I'll forward it and I say, man, I just had to have this. And at least once or twice I've had Matthew email me back saying, I thought you might buy that, or that seemed like something that'd be right up your alley. I figured you'd buy that. So
yeah, I love meeting all of my customers, Tony. I really do. And you get to know them, and it's just amazing to make that connection. Like you said, Lionel, the hobby through these connections has never been stronger.
I know. Like, okay, this is my $1 million question that everybody gets tired of me asking, but I have been overwhelmed by the popularity of this podcast and the number and how big the hobby is. And I just never in my time have I had this much enjoyment from the hobby. So my $1 million question is, do you think the hobby's growing or shrinking or moving sideways? Like, what do you think?
No, I think the hobby's never been stronger. The amount of offerings that are out there from plastic manufacturers, the amount of brass that's becoming available now, what we're doing, and the amount of interest that we're seeing from a younger generation. A lot of my customers are in their 20s and 30s. I've got a really strong core base in that age group. Great to see that.
I know. That is what people are missing. I'm telling you, this hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered with model railroad goo because there are so many people in their 20s and 30s. And Tony and I have a great young friend. His name's Drew Warrington. And actually, I brought him into the fold because he reached out to me for an interview. And I said, absolutely, young man. And he's a great young guy, and he's 16 years old. And, he's got his YouTube channel and everything. And there are tons and tons of people under the age of 40 that are just, this hobby is just not, I love this. And nickel plate caboose for $194. Now, when would that have been released? It's Overland Models, a nickel plate bay window caboose. 194. When would that have been released in actual?
Overland's really not a name till what, about 1980-ish? So it's
Yeah.
got to at least be 80 or after.
Of course, if I looked at the description, it says right here, 1981 run Overland Models Incorporated, built by Edjin in Korea. Box shows moderate shelf wear with stains on the lid. Spare parts included. Custom paintwork is very good. Minimal, if any, decal film showing. Window glazing and MV lenses installed. Man, you guys give a ton of stuff and all the details.
See, that's why I say I never feel like I'm buying it blind. Or like, well, I don't want to bid any higher on this on eBay because they didn't really say, or I can't see this, or they didn't show me the box. I mean, the pictures, the information, I have never yet opened a box and been like, well, this isn't what I thought I was getting. In fact, usually it's the opposite. It's like, wow, this is even better than I thought it was going to be. How cool.
You know, we try to point out all the wonderful features of each model we've got, as well as any deficiencies that might exist, right? You know, I've got to be honest with my customers.
Yeah, holy mackerel. And you just said it there just a minute ago with more brass coming online. So there is more brass there is a bit of a resurgence in brass and new brass. Is that what I'm hearing?
In new brass, as well as the availability of some of this classic brass. You know, again, with my website and the team that we've got over there, we're listing anywhere from about 25 to 40 pre-owned classic brass models. You know, we jokingly call them new to you brass models, 30 to 40 models a week. So, you know, stay tuned. There's a lot of it that's going to come available.
And you do hold all that for Friday morning, right? Friday.
We do. Yeah.
Is the big, yeah.
We do. That's kind of our build-up. We'll usually tease it. Oh, good. Tonight is Thursday. I've got to go do some more work yet, too.
Yeah, like you're showing a picture. I almost feel like I should buy this for Tony, just for the heck of it, and send it to him as a gift because I love him.
What is it? What?
This nickel plate bay window caboose. It's really, really nice. It's $194.
And it's painted.
It's painted.
That's very cool, but how about, did you see the Nickel Plate Road dynamotor car?
The dynamotor car? Where was that?
$99.99, $100 for that odd duck dynamotor car. I don't know if he still has it or not.
Yeah, you know, as of the taping of this show, we still do. We just featured it today on our Throwback Thursday post. But
where is it? Where is it? Where can I find it?
Let's see. I saw it it's on his Facebook page.
Yeah, it's under. So our website's organized by importer as well as railroad. So you can search by, that one's a custom brass model and a nickel plate road car. So it's pretty easy to just enter those things into the search bar and work your way through it.
All right, I'm going all the way back to the top of the Facebook page. I'm going to scroll. Is this the dynamotor car by this one here? $99.99.
Yeah,
$99.99.
Isn't that cool? That's an old NJ custom brass.
Do you take PayPal?
Absolutely. PayPal, plastic, or Google Pay, Apple Pay, we'll take anything.
Okay, I'm buying this for Tony.
Perfect.
After we get off the air here, you can walk me through it, and you just send it to Tony.
There you go.
There, don't say I never did nothing for you.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you, I owe a shout out to, I don't know if he's gonna listen. I can guarantee he's not gonna listen. But my dad, my father has been with me for a long, many of these road trips. And I know he's not gonna listen, but I've got to thank him somewhere publicly too. So, we were talking about this, Lionel, where do we get our start? And he's kind of the one that did it for me. He's still with me, fortunately. And you'll see he's featured on some of our Facebook posts as he travels with me a lot in that beautiful white Hertz rental van. But he's put up with a lot, and I got to owe him a lot of thanks for that too.
Does he have a name?
His name is Paul Dowd.
I think his name is Dad.
That's true. His name is the best dad in the world.
All right, Paul Dowd. Hey, Paul Dowd, this is a shout out to you. Hey, Paul, how you doing? You better say hi to your mom too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my mom's put up with me quite a bit too. She puts up with him too. Big shout out there. So,
all right, I'm buying that dynamotor car where do I find it on the actual? Now, okay, let's just do this for fun. This will be the last thing we do. How do I find it on the website?
So if you jump on www.resourcerails.com, and I'm going to do it with you so we can walk through it here.
Right.
And you go to the top of the website, you're going to see a series of product listings there. And you can do search by, or you can look at those product listings. So if you do shop by scale, is another one of our options.
Okay.
You can select HO scale.
Okay.
And then if you go over to the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see product type. And then below that, you're going to see railroad name. Product type is kind of how we group steam locomotives and passenger cars and freight cars. But in this case, your best choice is going to be to search by railroad name there. So if you just scroll down and find nickel plate, NKP.
All right. Let's see here. And how do you spell NKP? Tony, you're a magazine editor. Help me out here. How do you spell NKP? All right. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, now I'm gonna add it to my cart. Boom.
There you go.
And is there a simpler way? Can I just send you the $100 and you do it?
You absolutely can. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one other free thing, one other cool thing that we offer is free domestic shipping on most orders of $199 or more. So that's one big perk we've got.
Oh, so I got to pay the shipping for this thing. Jeez.
Well, you are up in Canada. That's a tough one.
Well, no, we're sending it to Tony.
Oh, that's right. He's going to Missouri. That's right down the street.
Yeah, that's just down the street.
Yeah,
I think Tony's speakless.
He doesn't know he's getting a nickel plate dynamometer car. I'll tell you that.
I just told him.
Yeah. He should buy. There's a beautiful Overland Models switch engine on there that I've been trying to get him to add to his personal collection. Nice custom paint job on it. Really unique nickel plate road model there too.
Are you still there, Tony?
Or did he? Stuff.
Oh yeah, that NW2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you sleeping or something?
I'm ogling models here.
I just bought you a dynamometer car.
Oh, it's awesome. It's very awesome. I've been looking at that forever this last week. I think that popped up in the last week.
It did.
Like, wow, $100. That's incredible.
Well,
because that's one of those odd brass things. I like Walther's kind of made one, but I don't know what its prototype is. But it's like, man, that'd be awesome because then I could set it behind that nickel plate Berkshire that I have. That they're running the dynamometer car to test it.
Well, it's yours now, and make sure you make a big fuss about it on the fans page when you get it.
I will make a very big fuss about it. And next time I see an RS1, I am going to buy it for you. I had it in my cart at one, but then I think I bought myself something else that day. But I'll get you something.
You know what, Matthew? It's the least I can do because he bought me a Cadillac.
There you go. And that $1 million idea for movie reboots. Just hang on to that.
Yeah, that is. Come on, Airport 75. We remake that with a modern cast, and we'll use. You know what we use is the 737 because it's the workhorse of American aviation. We'll go with the 737-800.
There you go.
And we even have one of our favorites is the official Tracy Boyd, the official flight attendant of the AML network. She could be one of the technical advisors of the movie.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna, and what we will stay true to the movie until the Charlton Heston character gets into the cockpit. That's when we're gonna. The last 15 minutes are gonna be edge of your seat excitement.
Really revamp the whole thing. The script goes into turnaround here to get whipped up. Okay.
Yeah. It'll be edge of your seat excitement for the last 15 minutes.
Oh, all right.
You'll be sucking on that soda, just like, what's it going to happen? Is it going to get it down? What's going to? All right, Tony, can you give out our email address?
There is an email address if you would like to email us. In fact, you can go to the website to do that. The website is amodellerslife.com. And then you'll see on your left, it says, send us an email. And you click on Bruce, the mildly agitated mail boy, and it'll automatically open up and send one. Or you can just put in modellerslife@gmail.com. And that is modeler with one L, like Resource Rails has one L. And you can send an email to us. And on the Modeler's Life page, you can find out how to download everything and become a Patreon member to listen to those shows. And is there a link on here to get over to Midwest Model Railroad if you need a shirt or hat?
No, you know what? I got to put a link.
Why is that not there?
I don't know. What is wrong with me? So Matt, if you enjoy if you find yourself enjoying the podcast, which we're not sure why you would, but if you find yourself enjoying the podcast, for 365 easy payments of 16 cents a day, you can get double the amount of podcasting fun each week. Maybe your dad will at least listen to the part where we're talking about him.
Yeah, there you go. I got to listen to you guys more often. You've got some amazing guests on here. I'll tell you that.
We do. We got a guy that he was a locomotive engineer for BNSF. Then he worked for Amtrak. He was a sound kid in high school. He learned all about audio, and he did local theater. Then he went out to Durango and worked for Soundtracks. Then he came back and he got a job for work for Warner Brothers, and he's going to help us redo Airport 75. And he works is all involved in Polar Express. And then on top of all of that, he's started a whole new company in the Wayback Machine.
Hey guys, I really do appreciate it. It's been a tremendous amount of fun sharing my story and kind of what motivates me, what keeps me going with you guys.
All right. So and if you want a T-shirt or anything like that, T-shirt, hoodie, a mug, a hat, all you got to do is go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. And you go along the navigation bar and click on AML, and boom, you are in a wonderland of AML merchandise. So that's it. So now, Matt, at the appropriate moment at the end here, you have to say happy rails to you.
Happy rails to you.
Yeah, with enthusiasm at the time when you'll know when it is.
Yes. Okay, got it. Noted.
All right. Well, Matt, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
hey, happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Excellent. Excellent.
There was a hay in there, though.
That was good, though. I
Yeah.
like that. That worked.
All
I
right.
gotta be
Very good
unique.
at that.
I gotta
Okay.
be different.
Yeah.
That's very good.